a kid, you wanted to be a fireman, you wanted to be an astronaut, you wanted to do so many great things. But what happened now? Those dreams are still inside of you, deep down, they're buried, and the more you push them down, the more you suppress it, the more they're gonna pop back up, and the more you're gonna live in regret.
I think life is about being able to do what you want, when you want, with the time that you have.
The big mistake that I made, I was working for money. Today at 83, I learned how to make money work for me.
The rich person was a person that just had a lot of money. They had accounts with money in it. As opposed to a wealthy person, they just have a lot of monthly cash flow coming in. It's predictable, stable cash flow.
If you work for money, you'll never get rich or wealthy.
It's indescribable, the freedom that's achieved from not having to worry about mortgages, about bills, about finances.
I'm not bound by ball and chain of a desk, by having to show up 9 to 5 every day.
Unfortunately, finance is not taught in school, it's not taught in university, and even after university.
Would you want the $1 million right now? Or would you want the $10,000 a month in cash flow for the rest of your life and your family's life for generations to come?
Your income in 5 years will be the sum total of your 5 best friends.
The money on my mind, a great deal of it will fix me all I've ever desired. The money on my mind, I count it every time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I count it. Ooh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 24/7, and I stack it. The money got my mind.
Right now, we're hitting the streets of downtown Toronto. We really want to speak to the average Canadian and see what these people know about life and where they're going and if they have goals. I just want to know what the average Canadian wants to know. What do you think people want most in life?
Happiness.
Happiness.
Yes.
Okay, what does happiness mean to you?
I don't know yet.
Where are you guys from? Like
Germany.
From Germany. What do you think people want most in their lives?
The most. They want to
Well,
live.
what do you want the most in your life?
I want a big garden and working in my garden all the life.
Okay. So you want a big garden?
People want to be successful and like have lots of money and like overall just be happy.
What do people want most in life?
Each one have his own definition, his own history, background, education, what they want. They want to make a living, of course, to start to pay the
But why?
part of society.
But don't you think all of us want the same thing? Happiness?
No.
How important is happiness?
Yes, of course, happiness, comfort, stability, all this stuff is a theory. No, it's not theory. Stability, comfort, relax. Yes, that's in theory, in dictionary. But most people, they work to pay the sociology part of the book, do what they want to do, start.
So they work to pay what they want to do?
Yeah, they work to pay.
What do you think people want most in life?
That's a really hard question because I don't even know what I want most in life. I think that it's always changing.
Financial security, security for their families, for safety as well.
Financial security, can you explain, help me understand a bit more about what that means?
Not worrying about where their next meal's coming, how they're going to support their children.
What do you think people want most in life?
Oh, good question.
What do you want most in life? What do you want?
I want peace. Comfort, stability, but most importantly happiness, I think. At the end of the day, whatever you go towards, whatever you drive towards, it should make you happy.
Family is obviously really important and most important. And I don't know, finding like a passion, something that you love doing.
And how important is that to do something you're passionate about?
Most important, yeah. I think it lets you show up like as your best self. Mm-hmm. If you're not loving what you're doing, you're not going to be happy around your family, around the people that you love.
What does happiness mean to you?
It means a lot of stuff. Just getting up in the morning, doing normal routine stuff. Just surviving, I guess.
If time and money was not an option, what would you be doing?
I don't know, traveling.
It is important to live your daily life, day to day and enjoy what you do. I guess the main question is, in the very end, what is going to be left behind you?
What do you really want for your life? What's the purpose of your life? What do you want to create for yourself and for your family? I don't think people want to work 40 hours a week and come home and then die and say that's it. I think deep down in everybody, there's that striving for more. And what that really is your spirit. It's for fuller expression and fuller expansion. Energy is meant to be expressed. It's never for suppression. So most people, everybody has that desire to want to achieve more.
I think in the simplest terms, the concept of breaking free would be to not be bound by anything that is imposed upon you. So really the idea of freedom of choice, or this concern about how you can live your life.
What would it be like if we had less financial stress in our lives and had more time to do things that are important in our lives? Whatever the passion is, your hobby is, or whatever.
Breaking free would be just having the choice, really, of doing what you want, when you want to do it, with whomever you would like to do it with.
The biggest challenge of individuals, actually, those who are struggling through life, about breaking free from the routine of working and childcare and doing all their home endeavors, is to find time to how do we invest and how do we make money work for us. To break free from that cycle of working home.
Everybody wants an income, needs an income. Now the question, you work for it or you make money work for you to get the income. That's a choice you have. Simple choice. Nobody can do without income. You can't think of getting married, you can't think of buying a house, you can't think of doing anything without income.
And few individuals know how money works. Because money works for them is to pay bills, not to save. And that's one of the biggest challenges we have in breaking free out of that cycle.
I think what's happening to people out there today is that they believe that if they're not working, they've been ingrained with this idea, I must work 40, 50 hours of work, I must work for 30, 40 hours, I must work, and do time. It isn't the fact of just laying on a beach, which for some people is maybe just 1 week a year. They get to go away in the winter and lay on a beach and do nothing, and they think that's what life is about. It can actually become quite boring if you do that too many times. What I think life is about is being able to do what you want, when you want, with the time that you have.
We found that a lot of people right now in their lives aren't really living the life that they want. They're not really happy. There is another way. There is more than what you're seeing and what you're living and what you're experiencing. There's more to that 40-hour work week and that mortgage payment you have to make and that retirement at 65, you know. There's a different way you can live.
People make lots of money, but they spend lots of money. They're broke at the end of the day. They're working paycheck to paycheck.
It's the ultimate gift, you know, freedom to choose and freedom to decide on how you're going to allocate your time, I believe, is definition of freedom.
To be able to have the resources to live how you want to live, to do the things that you want to do.
Not being burdened or preoccupied with what's happening elsewhere, or, you know, what do I need to be doing, or what should I be doing, and self-imposing stress on yourself, which is not healthy, which causes illnesses, shortens your lifespan, and it also projects onto your loved ones, onto your family, onto your kids.
I don't believe that we were just put on this earth randomly. You know, I believe that we all have a purpose. The Creator gave us a purpose. And if you don't fulfill that purpose, well, you're gonna live a life that is probably mediocre. You're probably not gonna enjoy that much.
I don't do what we do in pursuit of money or or greed or just having more and more and more. My biggest motivator is freedom by definition. And just, like I said, just doing whatever you want with whomever you want at whatever time you choose.
What we found was that in life, you are born into an environment whereby either you are being used or you are doing the using. It's totally up to you. You are consuming or you're creating.
As far as we know, we only get one bite of the apple. So you can choose to live your life the way society wants you to live. You see, society is always trying to make you into something that you're not. And it's always trying to control you and steer your thoughts and your thinking. You see, the battle today is who has your mind?
I guess some people at the beginning of their life journey, they're worried about surviving first, but later as they grow up, they have children, they have other things that they have to pay for, and they're kind of trapped. They don't know what to do, and all they do is just continue doing what they've already done. And some of them don't see the end at all. It's like hopeless, so hopeless.
The wealthy have the same laws that you and I have. What makes them wealthy? They just take the time to learn, to be creative in learning how to use the banks, insurance company, and tax department, how to make inflation work for them instead of against them.
Because when you look at it, what is a rich person? A rich person, basically, to me, is a person who's accumulated or has money in various accounts. Whereas a wealthy person has money coming in on a monthly basis.
Finances has always been there. It just changed in forms. People are lending money from the time of the Romans. People are collecting taxes from the time of the Greeks and the Romans. So it's not something new, it just changed in format.
I was a lawyer on Bay Street for almost 20 years. So living a very fast-paced, demanding environment, doing something that I loved, but very demanding and very taxing nonetheless. It's not something I wanted to be bound by forever.
I guess what stops people from doing what they love is the fear of unknown. So they just don't know where this passion will lead them because they still have some bills to pay, new shoes to buy, new phones to purchase, right? And all those dreams do not guarantee all those dues.
As a Bay Street lawyer, I got home late in the evenings, didn't spend as much time with my kids as I would have liked to, was quite stressed out all the time. The sort of classic rat race.
Until you're able to buy your time back, you're not free. If you're forced to work for somebody or to put excessive hours into your business, it is your freedom and it's that time that you can never buy.
Maybe they start making 1,000 a month, then they learn how to create 2,000 a month and 3,000 a month to get to them to a point whereby they could create enough cash flow that equals their working income, so working for income becomes optional on their own terms, therefore giving them time and money freedom.
And actually having a choice of spending time with your loved ones, with your kids, watching them grow up, and vacationing, because it's the experiences in the end that are valuable. Those are the things that you remember, not things or items that you buy.
I can travel whenever I want. I spent 10 months in Africa. Every year for winter, I'm not here. 1 year I go to India, 1 year I go to Africa because my daughter lives there. So that freedom is worth more than any money.
If you have the time to experience things with your loved ones, you seem to truly, truly enjoy your life and be truly free.
A rich person is a person who just has access to money, or they make very high income. Just because you're making $400,000 or $500,000 a year and paying $200,000 or $300,000 a year in tax, and you have more money than your lifestyle really requires, you can live in the house you want, drive the cars you want, go to the restaurants, take the vacations, put the kids in private school. It's a number. So even if your number is good after tax, if you're making $200,000 or $300,000 a year after tax, you can afford that. That's the image that you portray. A wealthy person, there's a lot of wealthy people today that just don't look wealthy. They know they got the monthly cash flow coming in. They know they're just going to manage it. They know that they can have whatever they want, but they don't go after it because they have other important issues in their life that's important to them.
Basically, cash flow is a word, but if you have cash flow, you can do what you want when you want to do it. When you have an income, you can't. Your income will stop if you don't go to work.
I want to know how much people know or don't know about this topic of finance and cash flow. So do you know what cash flow is?
Cash flow, 2 words, cash and flow. Cash according to you. Flow is speed.
Right.
It's quantity,
Right.
flow.
So,
Put them together, become cash flow.
do you know by any chance what cash flow is?
No.
Have you ever heard of the term cash flow before?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Have you guys heard of the term cash flow before?
Yes.
Have you heard of the term cash flow?
Yep.
What is it? What is it?
Cash flow is the way of life.
Cash flow.
Cash flow.
The excess of money.
Access of money.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of the term cash flow?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is? Can you explain it to me?
I wouldn't know how to explain it. Cash flow, like having money coming in.
Have you ever heard of the term cash flow before?
Cash flow, yeah, I have, but I mean...
Do you know what it means, cash flow?
No.
Okay. Have you heard of the term cash flow before?
Yep.
What is cash flow, sir?
It's when you have money coming in, and it's how you distribute your money, I guess.
Have you heard of the term cash flow before?
Yes, during my office work times.
What does cash flow mean? Do you know the definition?
To me, not that much, because I've never done much accounting. I can barely balance my own life budget.
Most people don't spend the time to learn about finances, so they end up being used.
We find that at the top of the vertical is the government and the regulatory issues. They are licensing the second level, which are varieties of companies, insurance companies, mutual fund, investment companies, and dealers. So these companies have the next level below them, advisors and agents. The role of the investment advisor or the agents and advisors is to sell products to the consumer who's at the bottom. And this poor consumer doesn't know what to ask for, doesn't know what to do, has no concept of what alternatives. The most common question that they ask is this good for me?
Most financial advisors take 6 weeks to get a license as an investment guy, 6 weeks to get a license as a mortgage broker, 6 weeks to get a license as an insurance agent, and they go out there as specialists. They go out there to help you. In 6 weeks, if a doctor learned what he learned in 6 weeks, I don't think you would take a prescription from a doctor who spent 6 weeks. And yet, what choice do you have? Thousands of people out there, advisors, took 6 weeks to get a license, and now they're advising you on wealth creation, on financial planning, on tax planning.
The current vertical of government, companies, advisors, consumer shows that this poor consumer is getting squashed. Totally getting squashed. Statistics show they work for 30, 40 years and they end up below the poverty line at 65 and they're going to live for 30 years, and we have a national pandemic. We have a national pandemic. The government has realized, we have a report on this, that it's well underway because people are not working anymore at 65 or whatever, and they're going to live for 30 years, and how are they going to support themselves? On love and fresh air?
As soon as the consumer recognizes that is the problem, then they'll think twice before who is advising them.
The only solution to this vertical is to take the consumer and say, educate yourself, get yourself the knowledge, and put yourself at the top. Then know what products and companies you need and how to coordinate them to get you to that financial balance point where you've got that cash flow so you have the time to do what you want to do.
I never believed in any advisor, or I don't believe that anyone can do better for me with my money than I can do for myself. So I started studying the products and studying plans that these companies have. And once I did that, then I was able to show clients how to use the insurance companies instead of being used by the insurance companies. How to use the banks instead of being used by the banks.
The person that is more knowledgeable will tell the advisor, I want this, and I want this type, and I want this amount. They walk in knowing with confidence what they want because they're looking at that piece as part of their tool in their overall recipe. The 95% of people not knowing this are more vulnerable to be sold.
That's because you're not aware. If I put my hand in his pocket and he was aware I was taking out $50, he'd break my arm, right? $50. Now he's giving away more than half of his income and he doesn't cry. He's quite happy. He's partying all day.
They're so busy. Go to work, coming back, putting the money in the bank and hope, for God's sake, that it will materialize so one day I'll make a lot of money. They're making 2% on their money or 3%. The bank are making maybe 6 or 8, 10% on their money. So by the time of the end of the year or the end of the time period when they're ready to retire, it's a minimum amount of money.
I've been in the industry for about 45 years. It's just the way the industry is. If you look at the medical industry, the doctors refer you to other doctors. He doesn't say, I know it all. You've got an eye problem, he'll send you to eye specialist. A heart problem, he'll send you to a heart specialist. Unfortunately, in the financial service industry, most professionals say, I know it all. And they don't refer you to anyone else. And the only one who loses when there's no interaction between the professionals is the client.
Literacy, financial literacy now, is to educate yourself and say, yes, where do you get your rights? What is it happening? You call your representative and say, this is not working in my favor.
You choose the path that you take. If you want to switch from bad relationship to a good relationship, from saving money to creating cash flow, the process of switching involves a couple of things. What does it involve? It involves getting educated. The second thing it involves is knowledge. But more importantly, it's validating that information that you're getting. Where's the source of that?
People in the financial service industry themselves don't have cash flow. They work for an income. Cash flow is making money work for you. The wealthy have developed cash flow. The rest of the folks work for money.
If you want new financial results, you can't keep doing the same things, right? That's the definition of insanity. You have to do different things if you want different results. Most people say they want more things, but they're not willing to change where they want to go. You have to be willing to sacrifice some habits and some of the things you're currently doing in order to get new results. How willing are you to learn new things?
Keeping clients uneducated is good for business. What is the incentive for the government to teach you how to pay less taxes? Do they send you a letter in your assessment notice when you file your return saying, you know what, you're doing it all wrong. This is how you do it, and if you do it, you only pay us half the taxes. That's not going to happen.
So it's not Revenue Department's fault if you are spending all that money. It's your fault for not taking the time to learn what the wealthy have learned.
You never stop learning, no matter how old you get. Broke people, they're too busy at work or they're too busy doing things and they're not willing to invest in themselves and their own personal growth to get them to where they want to go. They'd rather see who's playing tonight or what the next sports game is on. What's the most important thing your parents taught you about money?
You have to take care of it and not to spend so much money for things you don't need.
What did your parents teach you about finance, or what did you learn about finance?
Nothing.
What did your parents sort of teach you about finances?
Nothing like explicitly.
What'd you say here?
I think living within your means, understanding, saving and investing, all of those things.
What are they, anything about investments or anything like that, investing?
No, I'm horrible in investing.
What did your parents sort of teach you about the topic of finance?
Honestly, my dad always told me to save, but that's about it.
What did your parents teach you about money?
Never to spend it ever, and don't enjoy life and just keep it in a bank account.
What did your parents teach you about the concept of money?
You have to earn it. You have to work hard to earn money. Save a lot, don't overspend on things you don't need.
The reason why statistics show that 95% of Canadians adopt a model of saving their money versus 5% of the people that are wealthy that are creating cash flow, primarily because the 95% have adopted this model because they inherited it from their parents or their lack of communication about finance from their parents, where the 5% grew up in an environment that their parents helped them understand how to create cash flow as opposed to saving their money.
The only place I know where people learn how to create wealth is at home. So you'll find that wealthy families develop wealthy children, poor families develop poor children, regardless of the country, the economy, the tax system. The wealthy become wealthy in any economy, in any country.
Why didn't our parents do that for us? Why didn't they take us down to the bank 18 years ago and get us that 100,000 and said, okay, we can invest with the bank invests, which is maybe in real estate or some other options that are available. Why don't we have this cash flow coming in? The number one reason why that happens is because they just didn't know. Our parents didn't know. They came with good intentions, and immigrants for a lot of them, rolled up the sleeve, went to work, did the best they can. They weren't shown this.
This morning I dropped off my little one at junior kindergarten and I was watching what was going on in the schoolyard, and at 8:35 a bell goes and kids in a panic run into the classrooms. It's so symbolic and illustrative of their future and their jobs. Since they're 4 years old, they're taught that, okay, we're gonna start our work or start our jobs at 8:35. You better be there and you better run in, and my little son was being escorted into his classroom, and there's the teacher representing the boss, and you better not be late, and you gotta keep the teacher happy. And this is pre-programmed and taught to us starting at the age of 4.
The mindset in certain families is the mindset they have. So regardless whether you become an accountant, lawyer, doctor, businessman, your mindset will still be the same, which will be financial failure if you are in a family that's failing financially. By the same token, even if you're not smart, if you're in a family that's successful financially, you automatically become successful financially. It's a mindset.
It's a bit of a broken system. This system that teaches you go to school, get a good job, work for 30, 40 years, and then save some money maybe in the process, give away all your time, trade your time for money for the next 30, 40 years, and then retire on less than what you had initially, a couple of $1,000s a month. This is the pension that you will receive from the government for your 40 years of work. And I think that we're going to teach our kids principles of time, money, freedom, of passive residual income, principles of cash flow investing, principles of investing in real estate, period.
My grandchildren went to university without spending a penny from their pocket. The rental property they had when they were 16, 18 years old was paying for the tuition fees. Granddaughter who's just becoming an accountant and majored in Spanish, she went to Chile to brush up on the Spanish. Her job is giving her less income than her properties that she has. Basically, she could retire today, let's say, if it's only income. That's a contribution I made to my family, teaching them something that I learned. I learned it at 80, they are learning it at 20. And if I can do that for the rest of the world, I'll be the happiest man in the world.
These are all things that we're going to teach our children. Of course, we're not going to deter them from going through the traditional school system, but there are things that are not taught in the school system, and they're not taught to anybody after, which is why I believe there are so many people that live in the rat race and go through their entire lives with that mind frame.
In the report, it identified quite a few folks who are much more vulnerable for that. New immigrants that not understanding the policy and the situation here are much more vulnerable to be educated. Young people, it will get worse. It gets worse today of the price of houses, especially in Toronto and Vancouver. Basic accommodation is way out of their reach. But if they had invested properly and understand how money works, they could be a part of all of this wealth that's going on today.
I still have a dream of living somewhere outside of the city, in a big house, have a huge home studio where my friends or my customers would come in, record, have like a pure creativity moments. But again, when I think about just buying that house, I think of like eternal debt without any ways of paying it off.
The belief system, to me, is developed in the families that you were brought up into, the cultures that you have, the way that you communicate about certain things, and our schooling, our network, people that were influencing us. If you have a restriction around money, if you think that I have to go to work, I have to work for 40 years, and I have to do that, your kids will probably do that.
Realistic. If you work full-time in a music school, you can get about $1,500 a month, and that $1,500 a month is not definitely enough to sustain family, to buy a house, for example, or to invest in my business.
And I think what you have to do is you have to say, what do you really want out of life? If you could wave a magic wand, what would you want? Would you want the $1 million right now? Or would you want the $10,000 a month in cash flow for the rest of your life and your family's life for generations to come?
So we need that education of literacy, financial literacy, to say, no, I have a talk in this. I'm going to have a talk with my accountant and let him know that this is the way I want my money and how it can be done.
How important is it for kids to learn about money and, you know, how to invest it? And
I think it should be. I definitely think it's under-taught in schools and stuff. Like, a lot of kids grow up and don't know what to do with their money.
Why do you think that is? I mean, something as a topic of finance, it should be taught everywhere. Why is it that it's not taught in schools? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's really weird.
how important do you think it is for kids today, or people in general, to learn about financial education and have the right financial education for themselves?
I think it's really important, especially now. Like everything's like getting really expensive.
How much do we learn about this in school and even university?
Probably not enough.
Not enough.
Yeah.
How much financial education did we get in high school?
Didn't get any. Honestly, none.
Why is it that it's a topic so important as finance and financial education that it's not taught in these institutions?
I think they feel it's not their role for whatever reason, and so it's just not addressed. But I think it would be useful if it were.
How much financial education did we get when we were going to high school?
None, and that's the problem.
On a topic such as big as finance, we learned zero in high school.
I don't think we learned very much at all. Would you say that we learned anything?
I don't think we learned anything. Where do we go to learn how to do that? I mean, I would love that.
Where do we go to learn about that?
Yeah.
Hopefully you're learning it through your family and your upbringing, and hopefully you have the social support systems or family support systems.
So relying on family to sort of give us that education.
And hopefully living in an environment that provides it.
In high school, how much did you learn about financial education?
Oh, nothing. Nothing at all.
So it's interesting, as a topic as important as finance, that we learn very little in school.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's a good question.
You know, when we speak about literacy, in a sense, we can speak about it in different platforms. One is about reading and writing. One is about functional literacy. You have people who are able to read, but cannot function even in the language. When we transcend that, the financial situation, it becomes worse. Because here they have the tool in their hand now, money, where they've worked. They've worked in all their life. They're putting something away, but they don't even know why or how or best to do it. So when we become functionally illiterate in money, it can be devastating to a family for years itself.
I'm planning to have a family in future, not distant future, no, in the future, right? And it comes with lots of responsibilities. including financial responsibilities, which I'll have somehow to manage in order to achieve the goals that I want professionally, but also I want to make sure that my family doesn't suffer because of that.
In the report, it identified many areas. It identified that we can start from the kindergarten to tell young how to deal with money. We can go right up through the system of school, and they addressed all of that kind of situation. Right on, the report was right on. Implementation, was it done? No, and still yet, we have the poor, or the lower income people.
What people don't understand is that our belief system has a big impact on the actions we take in our lives. From when we're a little kid, we have been indoctrinated with certain beliefs and ideas about who and what we are. And the majority of people today are walking around with very limited concepts when it comes to the topic of money. And it's those beliefs and concepts that we have to alter if we want to enjoy more financial success. If you grew up in an environment where money was scarce, then you're walking around with all these beliefs such as, money's hard to earn, I can't afford it, or I'm always broke. Money is very easy to earn once you learn and apply certain rules.
I think that people's financial gaps have been created and they don't even know. And that's what we're doing in our program, the Break Free program and the Wealth Maps program, to help people become aware of their financial gaps, which is primarily what they learn through the education component of Wealth Maps and then the self-evaluation of their gaps.
They don't get any incentive at all to put their $50 or $200 or where is it going and why is it going and the costs. As a matter of fact, you put money into the bank and each month you'll realize it reduced by $1.50 for keeping your own money.
I was told that if I had to earn a lot of money, I need to be really smart. I need to get all this school. My parents were saying, go to school, go to school. Well, in the age of 0 to when I finished university, how much did I learn about money? 0. That's the first red flag.
Education has nothing to do with learning about money. In fact, the more educated people have a hard time becoming wealthy because I find they develop what I call paralysis of analysis. They're so damn smart, they know everything. By the time you tell them something, they're analyzing what you said, and the other guy takes it and runs, and he becomes wealthy.
People walking around with degrees coming off the end of their business card, but they're not getting the results that they want. And on the other hand, you have people that are almost functionally illiterate. They may not have the necessary qualification, but they're making it happen. They're action-oriented. They're making things happen.
It's a concept you've been grown up with. From the time you're a little child, your parents told you there's no free lunch. So even if a free lunch is in front of you, you won't see it. Or if you see it, you dare not touch it. The wealthy get a free lunch every day because nobody told them there's no free lunch.
I'm not denouncing school. I think school's the best thing ever, but it leaves out some important components that people need if they want to live a successful and happy life.
I don't blame the industry, I don't blame the companies, I just blame people for not learning how to use these different entities. I like to teach people how to make money in their sleep. That's my goal, and this can be done anywhere in the world.
Most people are living a pattern that is so habitual, they're not even aware of these unconscious beliefs and how they're self-sabotaging themselves.
Sabotaging your own success because of your mindset, because of the way you've been educated or raised. Now, you can't blame your parents, you can't blame society, you can't blame industry. Now you're an adult. So now you have to say, how do I fix it? So you have to take responsibility.
I find that sometimes what happens with education too is people become overeducated and they spend their entire times in seminars and reading books but never taking any action. Without the action, you have nothing. You just have a lot of knowledge and an opinion, but you don't actually even know if that opinion is accurate or not because you haven't tested it.
Well, there's a notion out there that poor people work hard and wealthy people don't work as hard. I don't believe that's correct at all. Poor people are poor. If you want to define whatever that means to you, they make a certain amount of income, they live in certain neighborhoods or whatever the case may be, based on their financial situation, because of the way that they address their concerns in their life, especially financially.
I really started to look at that and say, okay, well, where's my time being committed and what kind of results is that producing?
Remember, we only have 168 hours in a week, all of us. Only on this whole planet, all 7 billion of us only have 168 hours a week.
How much am I really getting from this? After all the taxes and everything, maybe I'm getting $4,000 to $5,000 a month, but I'm spending 60 hours on this. So what is your rate per hour?
So poor people are known as they go to work. They do the 60, 70 hours a week. They're working at something they don't necessarily like, and they're doing it with a bad intention and a bad habit. They're not excited.
And what is it going to take to replace that $5,000? Because if I can show you how to replace that $5,000 in the next 6 months, would you still choose to put in the 60 hours into your weekly work schedule? And if the answer is no, then you're ready to get out of the rat race.
What results you're creating right now. If you want to know what you're thinking and feeling, look at your current results. Your current results always tell you what you're thinking and feeling.
What is your output? What value of output do you bring to the marketplace? A person that works, unfortunately, and just does the same old thing all the time and makes X amount of dollars per hour, that's the output that they make.
You have to take possession of your own mind if you want to create the results that you want. Success is always an inside job before it becomes an outside job.
Wealthy people have learned how to use systems and processes to multiply their time. You can't be a CEO of a global company and go to work every day. You need the time and the tools and the committees and the boardrooms and the tools to manage that. Managing things is a different mindset than being managed by somebody else.
Until you actually are able to take action and do something outside of your box based on what you've learned, you're not going to see any results.
So either you're in the consuming world and you're consuming your time, consuming your energy, and consuming everything else, which is associated to the so-called poor side of things, or you're in the creating, the constant creating world. No matter what you've got, you're always trying to create the next thing. How do I add more value? How do I get it to the next level? How do we add technology?
I was the first person in the history of Canada Life to qualify for $1 million roundtable the first year I joined the business. And the reason is because I was thinking outside of the box. First thing I didn't want to go for company training because I didn't want to be like other agents. I did it my way.
Associate yourself with people that you want. If you want results, go to someone who's already achieving those results and mimic what they're doing. Success leaves clues. Success leaves a track. So all you got to do is follow the track and you will get there too. How many people do you think are doing things that they love right now?
Oh, not enough.
Not enough. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Leaving something behind that's not just a bank account with a bunch of numbers in it.
How big of a part does money sort of play in all this, you know? And
Huge. Yeah. Needing to, make ends meet.
how important is money in our lives today?
Well, I mean, we still need to foot our bills. We can't really weasel our way out of that. But the whole thing is, do you make money the goal or the tool, a tool for the means? Is the money what you actively pursue, or is the money, what you're trying to get in order to create something that's a little more permanent and a little more enriching to others?
How are you making sure that you're set up properly for your retirement, that you have the money you need to live?
I don't really know how. Just invest in it and hoping for the best.
Hoping for the best,
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know that there is an alternative to going to work for a paycheck and that wealthy families have been doing it for generations?
Investments and everything. I know a few people who live pretty much of the dividends of them, but they're not exactly willing to share.
Why is that?
Ask them.
So do you have investments yourself at all or anything?
Nope.
No. Do you plan on getting any investments in the future or anything?
I'll probably invest into an education, but I don't plan to buy property or gold or stocks. One of the reasons, it's so distant from my kind of lifestyle that I'm not even sure if I'll feel comfortable doing this.
I think we all want the same things, right? We all sort of want time and money freedom. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So now it becomes, how do we attain that time and money freedom?
Good question.
Good question.
Where do we start? Do we start at home? Do we start with politicians or the policymakers? Do we start with the church? Do we start at the schools? Everywhere. In every part of it is conscious. They must be conscious about how money works.
It's not saving money that makes you wealthy or rich.
There are people who are saving all their years and find out that they are bankrupt. Just by news, come on and say, well, this company just went bankrupt. All your $1 million went down the drain.
95% of the people are saving their money. They've adopted a philosophy that's been promoted by the government, certainly influenced by the media, and supported by the financial service industry to retire. Retirement date, 65, gold and, get a watch or something like that, you retire. When we analyzed what the wealthy families are doing, they don't retire. They just have other people involved in managing what they inherited, although they've grown, so they don't retire.
Retirement is not an age. Retirement is having cash flow. If you have cash flow today, you're free to work or not work.
When your finances are balanced at a point that they have crossed your regular working income, working for income becomes optional on your own terms. So you can choose to continue to spend 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week working for income, or do you tend to put that time into something that's more beneficial for you, your family, and your own life's passions and purposes?
Step by step, take action, and then monitor the results. You're not having to take huge risks if you do it that way, but it will get yourself into a different way of thinking. And once you start receiving passive residual income, and once you start living off cash flow, trust me, you'll never go back to the other way.
There's loads of money that banks and insurance companies have, but you don't know how to access that money because you don't know what to do with it. So you have to start learning how to make money work for you instead of you working for money.
We decided to take some significant steps to increasing our wealth through a number of early investments in investment properties, rental properties. We started to take steps towards creating that kind of break-free style of living.
A lot of that has to do with fear. You know, it's fear of the unknown, it's fear of just being afraid to take a step that's outside of that box that's been defined for them.
The transition into investing or investing in rental properties was, for me, a definite shift. As a conservative person, financially speaking, I had to start thinking differently about money. I like to put my money in my bank, see it grow, have full control over it, not have expenses against it, and that sort of thing. So as a very conservative person.
If you're able to overcome that fear and just take one little step where you can start developing something on the side that generates passive residual income for yourself, just test it. Fear prevents you from taking some huge steps. Take baby steps, test the idea, and have a little bit of passive residual income coming in from a rental property or from another source, and then you can really see how quickly you can replace that income that you may have been working for in your entire life. You can sometimes replace it in 6 months or 12 months and actually be free to make decisions about what you want to do next. And not relying on having to go to work 9 to 5 every single day. And if you like your job, fantastic, but at least you have a choice of leaving it.
When you are creating cash flow, you are creating assets that are creating you monthly cash flow. Those assets need to be constantly supervised and managed. It's like anything else. Now, you may have some people that will help you manage that.
You know the difference between millionaires and billionaires? Millionaires spend their assets to enjoy their income, enjoy their lifestyle. Billionaires use the income from their assets to enjoy their lifestyle at their income. They don't touch the assets at all.
Things like Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad series was a great example for us, where really we were taught about principles of cash flow and about positive cash flow investing, and in a sense, receiving passive residual income.
Centuries ago, people were the same as they are today. Centuries ago, landlords were landlords. Nothing has changed. Today you can be a landlord with the bank's money. In fact, it's easier to be a landlord today than it was 100 years ago when the banks didn't give loans. Why are people called lords? Because they don't have to work for money. Half of the landlords make more money than you make in their sleep. They can be vacationing for 6 months and he still got rents coming every month.
It actually becomes a way of life.
Most of the investments make you money, but they don't make you rich. They just keep you alive. 90% of the wealthy have created their wealth through real estate holdings. Now, no financial advisor has any clue about real estate or have any knowledge about real estate.
With passive residual income, what it creates is money that's being made without your input. It's income that's coming in while you sleep. It's income coming in while you eat breakfast, while you do nothing, or while you work really hard. There's a steady income that continues, which provides freedom, not only currently for yourself and for your children, but also for future generations of their children and their grandchildren.
So once you recognize that you can be a landlord with the bank's money, then you say, how do I do that? And once you start researching, you find the answers. And today it's easier than ever to find answers.
The way that this approach has impacted my life and our family's life is quite significant. It allowed me to retire effectively at the age of 45. I was able to leave the practice of law, which I loved, but wasn't working for me anymore. In terms of what I got from the practice of law, I wanted to spend more time with my kids. I wanted to just have the freedom of choice. I didn't want to be bound by 5 weeks or 4 weeks of holiday a year or having to punch a clock.
There's easy ways to have cash flow and make money and use the banks to make the money. The bank won't give you money to start a business. The bank won't give you money to buy gold. The bank won't give you money to have a hot tip in the stock market. Yet, they'll give you money to buy a property. But where's the mistake? You go and buy a house like everybody else, which doesn't give a penny income. So you bought a liability, not an asset. A house is a liability. You pay tax, insurance, upgrades, not a penny income. And you look like a smart guy. How come you bought a liability?
7 years ago, I had this sort of turning point where I remember reading one of the books and thinking, wow, this makes a lot of sense.
Now, if you bought a neighbor's house, now you got an asset because that neighbor is paying the mortgage, paying the taxes, paying the management fees. The main neighbor is paying for everything. And you got a free house, free. But again, I told you, you want to see it even you want to hear what I just said, because in your mind, there's no free lunch. Where's the catch? Well, a simple guy, he becomes a landlord. The simple guy will make more money than you'll ever make. And you got a degree, you're smart, you understand finances, you wrote a book, and still you won't become wealthy. It's your mindset.
Learn the recipe, find out what ingredients are available, and go search for those ingredients in the recipe. If I give you the recipe to make this certain food, and I tell you this is the ingredients, you can go to any shop and buy that ingredients.
A lot to do with it is having the belief and confidence that you can get there. And you can. There are steps to get you to where you want to go, to attain the financial balance point, to have the money coming in, to have the time and money freedom to do what you want to do. It's there.
And that's the difference, I think. Most people haven't been shown, they've been sold. You don't have to be sold something. You have to inherently know what you're doing. You can say somebody who's a chef, no, add more of this. You'll say, back off, dude. I know exactly what I'm doing. Do you have that much confidence when it comes to your financial arrangements? How you coordinate your finances? If you don't have that, then you're always going to be dependent upon others to lead you. And the results that we have from statistics from our own government and CRA and the financial service industry indicates that that hasn't worked too well.
You have to start taking personal responsibility and start doing the inner change. Once you do the inner change, then your outer world will start to change as well.
Hardest thing is change. Very hard. As much as you like to say, I like to change, many people can't change. There's something called conditioning. You go to a circus and you'll see a big elephant there, a rope around his leg, and a little peg in the ground. If he walked, the peg and the rope would walk with him, but he's standing in one place, wobbling there. Why was he not dare to move? Because as a baby elephant, a few weeks old, he was chained to iron stake in the ground. And months of trying and pulling and screaming and crying, he couldn't get loose. So now he took out the chain, put a little wooden peg and a rope around his leg, and he still doesn't move. You dare not move. As much as you like to say, oh, I can change, I like to change, you can't. You have been so conditioned. And you don't even know that you've got the power of a bull elephant, but you're not using it. You're not using it.
Your income in 5 years will be the sum total of your 5 best friends. Maybe some of you want to get new friends.
Today at 83, I look back and I realized I wish I knew at 43 what I know at 83. But there's an old German saying, we all get old too fast and smart too late. And that's what happens to you and to everybody that you know. You'll become smarter 10 years from now. No question about it. But I say, why don't you become smarter today instead of waiting for 10 years from now? But if you recognize that you need the smarts, then you look for the smarts.
I think that was a turning point for me. And the rest of it was just really observation and just kind of trying to apply some of the principles I'd learned and kind of looking at my life and saying, okay, well, I'm doing this wrong or we're doing this wrong.
I would say the 3 steps that someone can take to moving more in this direction are, number 1, to identify really what your goal or your goals are.
You can take a pen and literally write out how you want to create your life. I think that's a first step. You have the ability to create whatever results you want. 80% of the people don't even have goals, let alone financial goals. And maybe only 3 to 4% have them written down. So the first thing is to take a pen and write down what you really want in your life. What do you really, really want? How do you really want to live your life? That is step one. Grab a pen, write it down.
2, to identify what resources you have and what you can use to create that base for yourself.
Even though most people have that desire, they just don't know how they're going to carry it out. And the knowledge and information that they can learn from applying the cash flow formula and learning about how to create that wealth can propel them to the level that they want.
And number 3, you have to be courageous. You have to have courage and faith. You have to face your fear.
See, most people are focusing on what they don't want and what's going to happen. And oh my God, I have all these bills to pay and I have the mortgage and I have the kids. How am I going to put the kids through college? They're focusing on what's not going to happen. Focus on what could happen. Flip the script and you will start to see that. Remember, whatever you focus on, energy goes to.
I think it's a matter of want to. If you want to buy a car, even if you don't have the cash, you'll figure out how to buy a car. You go to a dealership, you look if they can give you time payment and monthly payment, somehow you buy it. The key is to want it, a car. Now the same thing with finances. If you want to have cash flow, you want to have income even in your sleep, it can be done. You just have to want it bad enough to find out how can it be done.
So start thinking about what could happen when you've achieved your cash flow. Start thinking and feeling like the person who's already achieved your goal. As you fuse with that new state of being, you just become it.
Most people restrict themselves because they haven't self-empowered themselves with the right education and the right knowledge that's been validated to give them that confidence and excitement to know, I'm going to achieve this. I am going to break free and I am going to handle this.
It's like acting. What do the great actors do? They study the script, they study the script, they study the script until they've become the script. They're living the script. They're no longer acting. They've become the character. So you want to act and think and feel like the person who's already financially free.
One advice that I always give is to not be afraid to be a good copier of somebody. So for example, I'm gonna write a song in this style, in this artist's manner, for example, and see what you can do or what techniques he's using to make melody more rich or more memorable, and try to do the same thing. It can be drum pattern, for example. It can be basic, but this is enough to give you some ideas to develop it in any direction.
What would you be doing if you had the cash flow right now? What would you be doing? Once you start feeling like you are somebody who is wealthy, you will become that person. Act like the person you want to be, and you will become that person.
Raising the awareness of people that they can, that's all. Most of them can, but they're not aware that they can.
How to achieve that? First of all, you have to learn what tools are available out there, what recipes are available out there. And that's one of the things that we actually have available through our online programming, through our Wealth Maps program. It helps you online understand what ingredients are available, and then it teaches you the cash flow formula that will create predictable outcome of cash flow.
And they'll realize that they could have cash flow, they could retire at 20 instead of waiting to 60.
That's the process that that we went through with Pamela when we first started our company and we first started investing in rental properties. We bought 2 properties, we tenanted them, we saw that there was cash flow being generated, that we're positive in our cash flow. And at that point, I took a spreadsheet and started projecting forward, what would it look like if we bought 10 properties? And what would it look like if we bought 30 properties? And what does that look like when you take 30 properties and you collect the cash flow from them and you start buying out of cash flow in order to buy another 30 or 50 or 100 properties over the next 10 years.
Is open up huge possibilities where I can work with my husband, spend time with my kids. It's also created more of a lightness for me as a person because I feel less restricted.
If you're thinking about buying a rental property, let's say, buy one that's inexpensive, that's not breaking the bank, but you can still see the results. And then you can project, once you've tested something accurately, that becomes just a sample. And then you can project forward and create scenarios. What would happen if you were to do more of that?
People are afraid of unknown, but by just trying something else, something new, you can expand on that Just do that first step, and then you'll see if it works or not. But if you don't do that, nothing will happen.
Doing these kind of analysis gets you excited about the idea of trying it and taking the subsequent steps, because you have a point and you have some education, you've also taken some action, and that will give you enough confidence to take massive action. And when you take massive action, that's when you can change your generational wealth and really create freedom for yourself much faster than you may think.
We believe that education is the foundation of change, of positive change. If you're not growing, you're going down the other way.
There's abundance all around you, and all the opportunities that exist are there ready for you right now. This is the best time to be alive in human history, because you have all the knowledge, 100% of all the knowledge that's ever available. You can go on the internet, you can research, so it's all out there. You just have to look for it.
Education is the key, and sometimes education is by doing, and other times education is by drawing on established resources, established individuals who themselves have been through the process.
So first of all, you want to get yourself a coach and mentor, because that cuts the learning curve for you right away. If somebody comes to me and wants help, a good thing I want to know is what's the most amount of money that person's earned, because that shows me how they're programmed. One-on-one personal mentorship is amazing because you get to see how they're thinking, how they're reacting, how they're conducting themselves, and you can model that.
It's very good to have somebody who can just simplify things for you and just show you the path of how things work. It's like reinventing the wheel over and over and over and over again, instead of like using the same wheel everywhere.
Average people get so caught up in their day-to-day life. They believe that they don't have any personal power to change it. A lot of people are blaming their boss, their work, their circumstances for why they are the way they are. Once you stop blaming outside forces, once you take full responsibility for your financial results, you can begin to start to change it. But you first have to change your beliefs and how you think about money and the beliefs that are ingrained in you already. Seeking a mentor is probably one of the best things you can do. Associating yourself with people that have what you want is going to bring you closer to that. And any successful person, whether it's the top athletes or anybody, they have coaches. The great actors have coaches. The great financial people, everybody has coaches.
I'm glad to be the person who can shed light on a certain topic, and then the person has this wow moment, like, oh, okay, I changed my thinking and now I can do something else based on that one little thing.
If you have the knowledge, then knowledge becomes the power.
And I guess finances is not different from music. You have to know what notes to press, how rules work, and then eventually it will come up to harmony.
Education, they said, oh God, you mean I have to study? You mean I have to read? You mean I have to do? Yes, it's a tough road. It becomes tougher now, as a matter of fact. It's much more tougher than your mother's days and all that. And knowledge becomes the power for wealth. Knowledge becomes the power to change regulations and laws. And then we can loosen up the thing of how that money can work effectively for everyone.
People are people. You show it to 10 people, maybe 2 will act on it and get ahead. 5 of them, maybe they'll do it later. And big majority may never do anything about the knowledge they get.
If you're walking around with limited beliefs about money, then that's all you're gonna see. Instead of the lack of money, start to think of the abundance of money.
Without money, you don't have cash flow, so you have to save it. But if I could get you $1 million today, you don't have to save money. It'll take you 3 lifetimes to have $1 million.
That's what differentiates successful people with everybody else. Successful people aren't smarter than anybody else. They're not born with any superpowers. They've just known how to acquire certain knowledge and tools and apply that knowledge to get them the results that they want.
Finance is one of the lifestyle skills that impacts our life, impacts the quality of our life, who we can spend it with, the time that we can do it. I know many people that don't like their job. They go into it because it's a paycheck.
The more you focus your attention on, okay, how can I increase my income? What are ways that I can learn more about money and really increase my income? Then you will start to see it.
There's basically 3 strategies of how you can make money. And one is exchanging your time for money. So you go to work, in return for the work that you do or the time that you spend, you get a paycheck for that. That's a kind of an interesting model because that's the highest tax paycheck you can get. So if you make anything over like $80,000 a year, 40% of that's gone in taxes. Anything over $110,000 a year, 50% of that's going to go in taxes. So you're giving up time for money.
You lose out all your life just in taxes alone. more than 50% of income just is lost in income tax and about 200 different hidden taxes for goods and services. There's very little you can do except paying your bills with half of your income.
The second one is when you invest in an entity or you have employees that are making you money. So you invest in a property and it's giving you rental income. You invest in a company and it's giving you dividend income. Or you invest in your company, you have employees that you're paying them, model number one, M1, but you're making M2 because you're making money off them.
You don't have the skills, you don't need to have the skills, you just have to find the people who have the skills. That's another mistake. People think that I have to be smart. You don't have to be smart. You have to be smart enough to find the smart people.
M3 is when you've learned how to multiply your income by having more people working for you, having more real estate working for you.
And there are people who can show you how to do it. Using the bank's money, using properties that are available, using management companies that can manage it for you.
The person who is earning $10,000 a month is thinking totally different to the person who's earning $50,000 or $100,000 a month.
Surround yourself also by people who you think are doing what you want to do. So for example, you may have someone in your family or friends that you think are wealthy. Typically they own a business or they own real estate or something along those lines. Phone them up and say, spend 20 minutes with me and help me understand what you do, your mindset of what you do, what motivates you. Start to get that energy around you, because that's what's going to propel you to the next step.
First you have to recognize you need a team. Then you look for one. Even if you learn it, don't try to do it. Get the professionals to do it for you. If you're going to make money at anything, work with professionals. If it's a tax specialist, helps you reduce your taxes. A mortgage specialist helps you to get money from the bank to make money with the bank's money. If it's properly set up, that mortgage costs you nothing, zero, because the revenue generated from the mortgage pays the mortgage to the bank.
Most people are listening to people that may not have the right advice to get them to where they want to go. And if there's no alternatives out there, where do we go? By default, we rely on certain organizations and institutions who we think are going to get us to where we want to go, but in reality, they maybe have their own best interests at hand. And there's so many people giving wrong information out there. You need people that have predictively created the results that you want and have the information that's going to get you to where you want to go.
The approach that we're trying to get people to understand that creating cash flow is a predictable recipe.
For me, the journey toward breaking free started with a very personal journey, a health journey of my own, where I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 38 and went through a lot of treatment, went through a health crisis, which was very scary, but was with the full support of my husband. Through that journey, I gained a different perspective on my life, and it was from that point that my husband and I really started to take very significant steps to just create different possibilities in our life.
It was trial and error. I armed myself with education. We started buying rental properties. And once I saw that having passive residual income was far less stressful from traditional businesses, and I was able to create a bit of income here, then I looked at some of my businesses that were causing me the most stress, and I started to eliminate them one by one.
When you have a business, you only created a job for yourself, really. A landlord hasn't created a job. He's got people working to pay him. Very different concept. The doctor makes $1 million a year, but he is the business. Bad news. He stops, his business stops, his income stops.
It created a tremendous amount of stress and take away your time and get away from your family, your friends, all that good stuff, your spiritual life, and then just be 100% focused on your businesses. So that was more my rat race.
Real estate is the only investment that has components that you need to create predictable family generational cash flow. So if you buy an asset that has some cash flow to it, you've got the cash flow coming in. And you're trying to create the cash flow to get to that point where it's that financial balance point where it crosses your income, right? So your working becomes optional.
You are working for you. Your dad was working for himself. Kaput. He's very, very limited. Now if your dad is a big thinker, instead of having 5 houses, you could have 25 houses. If he's still a bigger thinker, he could have 55 houses, but he doesn't understand again how to be a hands-free landlord. Not a landlord, hands-free landlord. If he's a landlord, he has got nothing but headaches. You lose money as a landlord. You.
Let's say you invested $100,000 in the stock market. You bought a mutual fund or you bought a stock or something along those lines, yeah? And that for whatever reason, that stock went down to 30,000. If you don't believe it can happen, look at 2008, 2000, it happens every 8 to 10 years. So the 100,000 went down to 70,000. Do you know what rate of return that $70,000 needs to make to come back to 100? It needs to make 42%. So your 70 grand, your little small engine now, it has to go up this massive hill and it has to make 42% to get to 100. That's a pretty aggressive rate of return. That's like rolling the dice at the casino now. But if someone mentioned to you that if you bought a rental property, for example, and the value of the 100,000 went down to 70,000, you still got that $900 or $1,000 a month in renting coming in. You're still coming in. So if it comes in for months and months and months while you wait for this to go back up, you're more predictable outcome.
I think it's very fair to say that this approach has created freedom for us and allowed me to not just focus on the kids and our family, but to just experience life differently, experience life in a way that is not restricted.
And a lot of it has to do with which ones are the most time consuming. If you have something that's a time suck, as I call it, eliminate it or delegate it. Unless it's making you a fortune, you should probably get rid of it or delegate it to somebody else and take some percentage of those profits. I had a number of different businesses and I started to eliminate them based on how much time are they taking from me and how much revenue or other satisfaction are they giving me. And if there is a disparity there, get rid of them.
The attendant stress that goes along with that, with the additional responsibilities that everyone, in the workplace is feeling because everybody has to do more with less. The release of that is not insignificant because it does take a toll on a person. And so you're then not your best when you are at home. I certainly wasn't.
Our time is something that other people are using. How do we use it to our benefit? How do we get more hours in a day?
That's tremendous advice that I've received, is that ultimately you always have to guard your time because there's only so many hours in the week that you have to work with. It all kind of starts with self-analysis and really looking at your days and seeing how you're spending your time and how much results are you deriving from the efforts that you're putting into that particular business or a particular endeavor.
So as we go along with the paying our bills, we're wondering, which is better? What am I doing? Why am I having a TV program that can get 260 channels? 120 of them are French and I don't speak French. Or quite a few of them are football, which are duplicated all the way. And I don't watch football. And you're paying for it. Wow! I look inside even my home here and I will look around and have maybe 3 sitting rooms. What the hell am I have sitting rooms? You have 4 bedrooms and I have to go and line one of the beds one day. They said, okay, I'll line this one. And said, wow, I'm carrying all of that. And the builders love all of that kind of stuff.
How to change habits? Changing habits, I guess, depends upon your motivation. If the doctor tells you that you better eat good, otherwise you're just not going to make it very long, then your habits will change. Most of us live in a very proactive society, whereby we need something negative to happen for us to change.
You change habits the same way they're put in. How is a habit formed? You've done it over and over and over again, and it becomes saved on your hard drive. So the only way to replace a bad habit is to create a new one and just repeat it over and over and over and over again. The repetition of new information gets saved and the old information deleted.
As soon as you start doing that, those little things, you'll ask the bigger questions. He said, oh, so I've saved this amount of money now. What do I do with it? Do I go out and buy a whole bunch of things I don't want? Or do I use it to make it bigger capital for me? So therefore, start looking at yourself within that kind of a frame and find out, what am I doing that is in excess of it all here?
Pick up a mirror and go and tell that guy in the mirror what's going on with that person's life. What choices you're making, where do you want to be, and how is it affecting your family and other people around you? Because only you can change things. Only you're the one that can make any changes. What we're doing with the Academy is helping people, provide them an alternative to consider the switch. Look at the education that we provide and then the self-evaluation of what we do. So through that process, you get to evaluate, where are the gaps? What are they costing me? How much time am I losing? How much money am I losing? And do I want to fix those things?
It is that kind of financial kind of a thinking you have to start doing and say, what do I have in the fringe here that I really don't want? Or what is happening here? because then I become financially responsible.
Whatever you're thinking about most, you're drawing into your life. Your thoughts are 99% of it because your thoughts are drawing into you all the experiences and the people that you need. Once I started to focus my attention around money and how to earn it, I started to attract and see things that I wasn't seeing before because I switched my focus. Now I started to bring in these people who are creating cash flow, who have the knowledge to get me to where I want to go. So it all starts with shifting your thinking and assessing what your current results are.
So you got to take small steps and get them done to get to your goal. These smaller steps are getting to you to make a shift in what they're doing, from old to something a little bit newer, or new to them.
So where do we start is a very, very interesting question. Be disciplined. The fact is that in today's society, we throw away 15 shoes and go back and buy another one. And we go away and we buy this on the modern stuff, and you find yourself you're spending way beyond your means itself. All that money is like going down the drain. So when you start thinking that way and said, okay, my golly, I can do that. I can even actually transfer that money to send my kid to a better school. In other words, investing on the education of that child, or taking that money and finding someone and say, how do I multiply this? In what way? Maybe I could buy another house with what I have, and all this help with thought. That is what we have to do practically. Look at ourselves. First, look within yourself. What am I doing wrong?
You know what's amazing? You can change the programming. And once you start to change it, amazing things start to happen in your life. Just something so simple to just say an affirmation every day that money comes to me easily and frequently. Something as simple as that, which may sound stupid on a logical level. Like, what do you mean money comes to me easy and frequently? But the more you tell yourself that, the more you say it, the more you keep repeating it over and over again, you start to believe it. If you tell yourself a lie a bunch of times, you start to believe it. So it's inputting information, new information, empowering yourself to get you to where you want to go.
I guess fear is what stops people from doing what they love to do, because there's no guarantee that thing they'll pursue will eventually work out.
How to face your fear, and in particular the fear of instability, is a huge part of, I think, what holds people back from taking action.
Most people don't understand the personal power that they have to create different financial results for themselves.
The answer to that is a very personal one and will vary from person to person. For me, I was able to draw on my own personal experience of fighting breast cancer and needing to have inner strength to get through that struggle. But of course, I didn't get through that struggle on my own. I did it with my husband.
You can have it. You can have the time and money freedom to do what you want. There's no doubt. And you just have to have the belief, seek the knowledge, apply the knowledge.
For me, it was about having faith in what we were pursuing, having faith in each other, having faith in the plan that we had set for ourselves.
Successful people don't diversify. You can't chase too many rabbits. Chase one and learn how to chase that one all the time.
How do we have hope in all of this structure that we see that is so rigid and so organized by government, professional institutions, and accountants and bankers and what have you? You have the power. I'm going to go and talk to my bank manager and say to them, what account is the best for me and why? And then you may have to talk to some of the mutual funds people. Why would I put my money there? Where does it go? What happened? The questions you feel that is dumb, the most stupid question, ask that one. That's the question that they don't want you to ask, or they have to challenge themselves to answer you. So where does my money go, eh? How long would I get for it to become anything else?
In any industry, in any field of endeavor, most people don't use their creativity. But if you can be creative, you can do a massive amount of business by being creative. Not the product, not the marketplace, not the economy. It's just your creativity.
Creativity doesn't come from thin air. There's always a thought behind it. Most of my music is being born when I sit in front of the keyboard and I try different things. And then by accident or by planning, I try to do something that eventually sounds good, and I start building upon that.
When people build houses, they build it the same way year after year, generation after generation, until somebody more creative comes and builds something very different. Same material, same cement, same steel, but then you say, wow, look at that building. What's the difference? The creativity.
One of my favorite composers, Alexander Scriabin, he started as a romantic and finished as an avant-garde composer in about like 20 years. And it didn't sound like anything before in music history, and that's what made him unique. He was not afraid to do it, otherwise he would be like any other mediocre composer back in the days. Well, living our lives basically is like composing music. You can use those 3 chords, 3 very, very common chords that have been used for a couple of decades, or you can come up with something fresh, something new, create a masterpiece. Alexander Scriabin was not afraid to do it, so why should you be afraid, right? Just take the first step and make something that was never done before.
You're wealthier than you think. With all that little money you have, you can use that and find out, how can I multiply this in a better way by talking to the right persons? Ask those questions, because little by little, you acquire the kind of a wealth, and where you put it will even, well, compound the wealth that you have. And once you start on that step, as soon as you step on that step up there, you say, well, what else? Then you step another step, say, what else?
Write your goal about it and write it down every day and think about it every single day. Now, once you start to do that, that's going to shift your focus, your energy, and vibration, and you're going to be in harmony with that goal. And the more you do it, the more you're going to see it, the result of it.
Some people will say, isn't that risky? Let's have a conversation around risk. You know, your boss can pull you in on Friday and say, we don't need you anymore. That's risky. Followed by that, your partner could show up and say, I don't need you anymore. That's risky. But if one of our chartered banks in Canada decides to go bankrupt, we're all flying the white flag.
I guess it all sums up to a decision that person makes. If you don't know what other people will think about what you're gonna do, okay, go ahead, keep doing the same thing that you've done for a couple decades. Or if you really decide just to try and see, go ahead and do it, because you live this life once.
You can really break free and live the life that you truly desire, the life that you were meant to live. It is your birthright to experience all of the abundances that this planet has to offer. You can really live the life of your dreams. It's just, are you willing to take that step? Are you willing to maybe make a decision? Once you make a decision, all the forces conspire to assist you. So it's, are you ready to make that leap, that quantum leap to break free?
I see the future as being very bright and one that is full of possibility. At this stage, we've created a strong base, one that is stable and I think predictable. So with the actions we've taken and what we've learned along the way, we can, I think, reproduce that and just continue to grow and create more possibilities for ourselves and for our kids.
Hey, you. I used to be like you, sitting on the couch, watching TV. And I thought to myself, is this my life? Come home from work, put on the TV, watch TV for 4 or 5 hours, and then go to bed, and then get up and do it again? No, you want something different. It's time to break free.
Fix me all I've ever desired. The money on my mind, I count it every time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up my mind.